Coming up in today's sports update, there was a college basketball game in Norman, Oklahoma last night that began just like another regular season game, but by the time it ended, it was incredibly significant, and not just to how it affects what will happen this year, but for the role it played in something that will be looked back on as historically remarkable. I'll tell you what happened and what it means after the break, so stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm James Farrar, and this is today's sports update. The quote, "all good things must come to an end," is widely accredited to the 14th century poet Geoffrey Chaucer. But fun fact, the line that people are actually thinking of reads, "there is an end to everything, to good things as well." It wasn't until the quote made its way to the United States that we decided the original wasn't as easy to say as we would like and changed it to what we say today. And if we're being honest, our way looks better on an inspirational social media post. So next time you want to impress no one at a party and ensure you won't be invited back, go ahead and pull that one out. You're welcome. Now, I didn't just bring that up because I know how much everyone loves fun facts on the history of centuries-old quotes. I did it because that saying was said by more than a few people in and around the Kansas Jayhawks men's basketball program after the team suffered an 81-68 loss to the Oklahoma Sooners in Norman last night. The reason that multiple teenagers were channeling a poem written in roughly the late 1380s is because that with the loss, Kansas is now mathematically eliminated from winning the Big 12 regular season title. That honor will be decided over the weekend and go to either Kansas State or Texas Tech. It'll be the first time in 14 years someone other than the Jayhawks has ended the regular season as champions of the Big 12 Conference. While Twitter went crazy after the game with former players, alumni, and media members all weighing in on the end of the streak, some in ways that really tested the limits of what human emotions are capable of, it was head coach Bill Self, the guy who started the streak in his second season in Lawrence and has been there for every minute of it, that tried to keep things in perspective during his post-game press conference. Self told reporters that he never really talked about the streak with his teams, but that it was pretty cool how they hung in there and kept it going for the substantial amount of time they were able to. Self also went on to acknowledge that it's players, not coaches, who ultimately win games, and that they had been blessed with a lot of talented players. He made sure to include the current group in that, even with the loss. It's really hard to accurately and appropriately tell you just how impressive this run has been without giving into hyperbole, but given the turnover in college basketball every year and the fact that it's the Big 12, a Power 5 conference, and this run of dominance really is something that will probably not be done again in our lifetimes. I do have to add one last thing that should be taken into account for historical context, if nothing else. This season has been full of ridiculous and highly unlikely issues for the program in ways that just don't happen to top-tier legendary programs like Kansas that often. They lost a lot of guys to the NBA from last year's team, and even in today's one-and-done world of college basketball, this team was younger than most, and that's just not how Kansas usually does it. The team lost their two top returning players. Forward Silvio De Sousa was declared ineligible before the year as part of the FBI's corruption case that's been going on since 2017. Although De Sousa did nothing wrong and had no knowledge of anything, his uncle took some money, and now he wasn't allowed to play for the season. A couple games into the season, center Udoka Azubuike had his promising season end due to injury, and finally the team's best outside shooter, LeJarrick Vick, took a leave of absence and never came back, quitting for reasons still mostly unclear to seemingly everyone not named LeGerald Vick. So now you can see why, after the game, a lot of people kept coming back to the same quote. Any one of those things happening in a season would be out of the ordinary, but all to the same team in the same year, it certainly seems like the streak was meant to end this year. That's all for today's sports update, so let's send it back over to Danny and Sarah at the news desk.